Yesterday, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that the Municipal Council of Saguenay, a town in Quebec, cannot open its meetings with a prayer. In a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court, doesn't that seem to be the trend these days, but that's a separate issue, the court ruled that reciting a Catholic prayer infringes on the rights of non-believers. It's a battle that's been going on for 9 years, and it started with a complaint by an atheist man against the mayor of Saguenay, a devout Catholic man. Now, in 2011, a Quebec human rights tribunal ordered the town to end its prayer and also remove the crucifix in the city council chamber, but the mayor fought back. The case eventually made its way through the courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court last year. And with yesterday's ruling, this case has come to an end. What will this look like? Well, it'll look like, in municipalities across Canada, prayer being permanently pulled from city council meetings. Peter Shurman is a former PC MPP for Thornhill, Ontario. He joins me now. Peter, you were an MPP for 7 years, and you recited the Lord's Prayer in the Ontario Legislature for 7 years. You're also a Jewish man. Were you ever once offended by the recitation of the Lord's Prayer?
Never bothered me. As a matter of fact, if you go back somewhere in the 5 to 7 year period, in other words, after I'd been around for a year or two, Dalton McGuinty, then Premier of Ontario, decided that probably it was anachronistic for us to begin every day with the Lord's Prayer. And despite the fact that he apparently is an observant Catholic, he tried to scrap it. And he got such a public hue and cry going that it's still being said today. The accommodation was that the Lord's Prayer would not be said in isolation. It would be said in concert with a prayer from another denomination, for example, a Buddhist prayer or a Jewish prayer. And that's the practice that they have. And the reason that I got involved is because I was never offended by the Lord's Prayer or the fact that it purports to be a Christian prayer. First of all, the words "through Jesus Christ" were edited out, so they're not said. Secondarily, I went to Protestant school in Montreal during the 60s in my formative years, and for 11 years of school, I said the Lord's Prayer, as every kid did, in the first half hour of class when it was time to do the Lord's Prayer, scriptures, sing God Save the Queen and O Canada, and sing hymns like Onward Christian Soldiers, despite the fact that I was in a community where 80% of my class were Jewish kids. And you know what? We're none the worse for wear. I argue that this is far less about religion than it is about tradition.
Mm-hmm. You know, I want to read you a part of the Supreme Court's ruling from yesterday, and it reads this: a neutral public space free from coercion, pressure, and judgment on the part of public authorities in matters of spirituality is intended to protect every person's freedom and dignity, and it helps preserve and promote the multicultural nature of Canadian society. Multiculturalism, to me, this sounds like the monoculture of secularism. It's as dogmatic, it's as zealous, and the kind of militancy that secularists purport to despise. Do you agree?
No, as a matter of fact, I think that you could bring a lot of things into it that are in our everyday conversation that go outside of the chambers of municipalities or legislatures, and they have to do with whether an East Indian Sikh can wear a turban. They have to do with whether a Jewish man can wear a kippah or a yarmulke. They have to do with the constantly discussed hijabs or niqabs, burqas that are worn traditionally by Muslim women, and whether or not we're being offensive to a man like the atheist that filed the complaint by displaying our overt wish to participate in what we see as our religion in a public way. Taking it beyond that, I go back to what I said about traditionalism. The fact of the matter is, no matter what the Supreme Court of Canada says, that municipality has probably said the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of its meetings for as long as it's been a municipality. Quebec was, and I would say arguably still is by sheer numbers, a Catholic province. They scrapped of their own volition their Catholic school board and their Protestant school board, and it's now non-confessional. The only Catholic school board left is in Ontario. And they did that in the name of secularism, and they did that in the name of cost. If for 100 or 150 or even more years, that municipal council in Saguenay has begun with the Lord's Prayer, I don't see it as a religious thing at this point, as much as I see it as being part of the fabric of that city since it's existed.
Well, that city, but also because this is a Supreme Court of Canada ruling, it now applies across Canada. And it'll be interesting to see which municipalities choose to abide by the Supreme Court ruling. It's my understanding that they have to, or at least have no legal recourse in the event that someone challenges it. I know Oshawa is one municipality that will continue to do that, but for how long? I don't know.
I think that your point is well taken. Once a body, an august body of the stature of the Supreme Court of Canada, doesn't get any higher than that, it pronounces on what Parliament does, for goodness sakes. Once it makes a ruling like this, you can bet that there will be municipalities, indeed legislatures across the country, which will be challenged.
Right.
They will be challenged because there are people out there who want to challenge them and now see that the precedent has been set. So I think you can get ready for an ongoing battle of separation of church and state here in Canada, which, while I acknowledge exists in terms of how our country is established, has never been strictly observed because of the basic tenets of those who put the country together a couple of hundred years.
Where do you see this ending? What about our national anthem, which in the French version talks about taking up the cross? Many mentions of God in our national anthem. You know, do you see it ending there? Do you think that these secularists, these atheists will go after that next?
Well, I'm not sure where I see it ending. I have said, and I'll say again, I think that the ruling opens the door. So, as you point out, the French version of O Canada does talk about those who carried the cross. So if that's the case, then that is open for challenge. I've been to a number of municipal council meetings around the GTA particularly, but outside of it as well, where there is a prayer invoked at the beginning. I've seen situations, I've been in situations where business meetings, public business meetings begin with a prayer. Is this the beginning of something that is ongoing? So the answer to your question, the short answer is, I don't see it ending. I think this is just beginning.
I would probably agree with you on that. All right, Peter, it was great chatting with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure.